Hi, and welcome to the dinner agenda. This is Bo.
And this is CLo.
Oh, you're singing again, CeeLo. You
Yeah.
must be in
I,
another good mood.
well, I feel like I just gotta mix it up every once in a while. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Do you take requests?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, you do.
I was listening to the Handsome podcast, which is one of my favorites. So funny.
I'm
And
sorry, the what?
the Handsome podcast,
Handsome, like as
yes,
in good looking?
as in good
Okay.
looking.
Okay.
And the three of them are just so funny, and it's always makes me smile and laugh. But Fortune Feimster is one of the comedians that's on that podcast,
Hmm.
and I would say not a episode goes by without her breaking into some kind of song, and she's such a great singer.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Anyways,
All
and
right.
then I was chatting with somebody, I don't know, last week. I guess it was last week, who went to go see her live. So she's stand-up comedian, right? And she was, I think, at
Hmm.
Massey Hall or something, said it was hilarious.
Hmm.
And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm kind of jelly. I would have liked to have seen that.
Nice. You know what this is reminding me of
Come
for
on,
some reason?
come on.
Talking about singing, talking about, seeing things live, blah, blah, blah. When we had gone with Isabella to see Grease at the
Yeah.
theater, and, um, during the intermission or break or something, there was this woman who came out singing and did a song. Like, it was like this random, like, wasn't well, it wasn't in the itinerary, I guess, for the play. It was during intermission. She comes out and she sings. And I remember saying to you, we were so confused. We were like, who the fuck is this woman? Who the fuck is this woman? And the audience was going crazy. They were screaming, yeah, everybody was standing up and dancing. And this woman, was singing. And I didn't recognize any song that she was singing. And I had no idea. You had no idea who she was. We ended up looking it up. And it was, I can't remember her name right now, but the group that Beyonce was in before she went solo. What was
Oh,
that?
that was at the very
Destiny's Child.
end, I think,
Oh,
right?
was that the end? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember now. I
And I'm
thought you
sitting here
meant
like,
like during the intermission when we were lined up for
no,
wine and popcorn.
no.
I'm like, I
I
don't
was just
remember
it
this.
just popped into my head. I was just like, "Geez, we definitely are getting old." Like, we didn't even fricking recognize,
I know.
this Destiny's Child. Everyone was going
But
crazy, and I'm like, "Yay, I don't even know who I'm clapping for, but yay, it sounds
you're
nice."
so awesome. I love you. But
She was, like, right beside me in the aisle,
I think
like, singing. Yeah.
yeah, I think some people just have, the ability to identify and recognize and be like, "That's so and so," and others
Mhm.
don't, and we're just on the don't list for that. Like, I don't
Yeah, I
I
agree.
generally don't.
I agree.
It's so funny that you bring up that play that we went to
Why?
with Is because a picture popped up on my photo memories this week,
Mhm.
and it was Is, like, doing this funny little pose in front of something that
Yeah.
said Shake Shack. And I'm like,
Oh,
"What the fuck, Shake Shack? When is that from?" And I'm pretty sure it was from when we went to the Grease show and they had
yes.
like a
Yeah.
photo backdrop or whatever that said Shake Shack. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
find it now and send it to you because you're gonna be
Yeah.
like, "That's like a little baby girl." And now she's
Yes.
a teenager girl.
I have a video that evening that we had go and it wasn't actually that long ago either.
Right?
It just goes to show you how quickly they grow.
That's
But I actually have a video of her trying oysters for the first time. If you remember, we went to that
yeah,
restaurant
yeah, yeah,
before.
yeah.
Yeah, and I had ordered them and she was like, "What the heck is this?" And she was all nervous to try them, but she did, and now she likes them.
I know.
So,
Her and Mel are,
she's
like,
my girl.
crazy for oysters all the time.
Me too. Dave and I too. Oh, we freaking love them. Speaking of plays and stuff, so I went to see To Kill a Mockingbird last night at the Ed Mirvish Theater.
Oh, nice.
Oh, CeeLo, was it ever
So
a
good.
good performance? And, the lead guy who played the lawyer, was Richard Thomas, who is I don't know if you know who he is, but the actor from The Waltons. I think he was
We
John
just
Boy.
covered the whole, like, I'm not gonna know who that is. I'm in the don't
Yeah, I know, okay. So, do you remember though I mean, I never really watched The Waltons, that was a little bit before my time, but I do know what that show is, and I have seen snippets of it here and there, but it was John Boy, and, he was basically one of the main characters. Anyways, he was one of the leads, in the play last night, and, was it ever phenomenal, but I have to say, a lot of high school like, in high school, some when we went to high school, this some, English classes read this book and other English classes didn't, and I my English class never did, but I actually picked this book up, I wanna say maybe 20 years ago, just because I thought, "You know what?" I was in this whole big kick of reading the classics, and so I picked this one up, and I absolutely adored the book. The play was phenomenal, but it really makes you feel really bad about how things were in the South back in those days,
Oh, yeah,
like
totally.
in the 40s and 50s, and I mean, I don't know how I just don't know how how people could have functioned.
Yeah,
There was
yeah,
just such a hatred for Black people and I guess anybody of color, anybody who was different.
yeah,
It was just disturbing, and there was a moment, because they were actually using the N word in the play because the book uses the N word,
yeah,
right? And, I'm so uncomfortable hearing that word
yeah,
because,
totally.
it's such a bad word. And, I was actually looking around thinking, "Oh my gosh, I wonder how many Black people are here today listening to this play, and how they feel." Like, I was actually wondering, how do they feel?
Yeah,
Like, they must feel, like, angry, and I don't know, that part was disturbing, but it was just it was a good play, it was a good book to read. I mean, the ending's not all that happy, but it's probably because it's more true to life, you know what I mean?
yeah.
But it was a great show, great play.
It's so funny to me to hear you
Mhm.
say that you didn't read the book in English, but you picked it up at some point. I did
Yeah.
the exact same fucking thing.
Oh, with this book or
With
with another book? Sorry.
No, with that book.
Real With that book, did you love it?
I love that book, and
Yeah, me too.
but it was the same thing, like, it wasn't on
Yeah,
the reading list for me in high
no.
school, but it was years later, and I don't remember why it had come in I don't know why it come back into, like, mainstream
Circulation?
something, or somebody was
Yeah.
talking about it, or maybe it was one of my early book clubs that were like, "Oh, we should
Mhm,
read this," or and I don't think it ever made it on the list, but it intrigued me, and it was one of those titles that I always knew and heard about that I'd like, "Oh, I've never read that, I'm gonna read that." So, I
mhm,
did the same thing.
mhm.
I think it's actually, like, still on my bookshelf somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was a really good book, and it was a good play, so, I don't know if they've got it. I think it's probably sold out at this point,
Yeah.
because I think they've only got a couple more dates left, but, yeah, it was definitely really good, but I'll tell you, CeeLo, it was a long play, and, I had gone with my cousin, and the play ended about 10 o'clock, maybe?
Oh, that's my bedtime
10 no, no,
story.
no, 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 sorry. It was 10:30. It ended at 10:30, and then we decided to, go for ice cream. So we were in the downtown core anyway, so we stopped off at a little, dive, and we ordered, some sundaes, and we sat there and we, kinda chit-chatted, whatever, and then by the time we left, it was like, to go home, it was probably 11:30.
Oh my
And then I dropped her
god.
off and came home, and so by the time I was actually washed up and in bed, 12:30, 1 o'clock, whatever, I am a zombie today.
Yeah.
Girl, I cannot stay up late anymore. I am a freaking zombie. I'm so tired.
I I can relate. I can't stay up
Mm.
late and then be a functioning I mean, I push through, right? But it's
Mhm,
tough.
mhm,
If I've been up late, I feel exhausted, and I've had a bunch of early mornings this week, but
mhm.
I'm pushing through, man. I'm pushing through. You know
Yeah.
why I'm pushing through?
Why are you pushing through,
It's
CeeLo?
Pride Month. Happy
Yes,
Pride.
happy Pride, happy Pride. It is Pride Month in Toronto. That's true.
It's International Pride Month, actually,
Oh, is
and
it? Okay.
it is the Christmas for the gays, basically. It's our high
Christmas.
holiday. It's our high holiday. Yeah.
I love
And
it,
I
I
was,
love it.
this morning I was driving is to she's doing her lifeguard course, and I had to drive her to the West End along Bloor, and of course, I passed by the top of the village at Church and Bloor, and, you can just
Mm,
you're coming into the city, and you can see all the, companies
yeah,
and buildings, and fucking everything's got, like, rainbow stuff out, and I'm just like, "Oh,
mm.
I love it."
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's a really, really busy time. I know I had reached out to Baby Bell Bell, who is, a drag performer, a well-known drag performer in Toronto, who I happen to know, and, I was gonna try to get him on this show for, Pride Month, but, obviously he's quite busy, so we'll get him another time,
Yeah, for
just because
sure.
the festivities that are going on, but I mean, it's just such a big celebratory time right now, which is phenomenal. And do you actually know how Pride started? Like,
Yes,
do you have any of that background?
yes, of course I do.
You do. So tell me.
Okay. Well, like, can I Google bits of it, or this is just going
Oh,
based on
sure.
memory? Okay, so
Oh, you know what? Go
it was the
yeah, go based on memory.
Stonewall riots, right? That police
Yeah.
were raiding, and, the people stood up against the police, and it became more of a protest, and that's like, the
Mhm.
first parade wasn't a parade, it was a protest, right? And
Right.
so, the police had been in the bars, and they had been raiding bathhouses, and the
Mhm.
community had finally said, "That's enough, we're gonna organize ourselves, and we're gonna stand up." And that
Yeah.
was, I think, the early '70s. I don't know,
Yeah.
you'd have to Google that to validate, but yeah.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
I have goosebumps thinking about it, that the
Yeah.
first parade was a protest, right? And I never wanna forget that. I never wanna forget what
Yeah.
people did to get to where we are today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, both of us used to live in the downtown core. Obviously, we were roommates at one point in time. And after that, I still continue to live in the downtown core, kind of just on the outskirts of the village,
Yep.
right? And it was such a phenomenal area to live. And the amount of gay pride parades that we attended, and they were so filled with excitement and
Yeah.
energy, and you know what? I absolutely loved it. I have not been in years now simply because I'm a selfish motherfucker. And I'm like, "Listen, it's hot. I don't wanna stand that long
Where am
anymore
I
in
gonna
the sun."
park?
Yeah, I'm older now, but you know what? When I was younger, it was just so much fun, and I
Oh,
and I just
yeah.
loved it, and I loved how
Mm.
everybody was just so engaging, and it didn't matter who you were. Everybody was welcome, and I just loved it, and it was a great show, that gets put on. Do you still go to the pride parades?
No, I haven't been in years. I think the last
Yeah.
one that I went to, we had friends visiting from Pittsburgh, and we had hooked up with them. We were out on Church Street, and Iz
Mhm.
was, like,
Young.
3
Yeah,
years
yeah, I
old,
remember that.
and Nathaniel was
Mhm.
in the stroller, and I am
Yeah.
navigating the people, which I don't like. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse over the years. I can't even imagine what it is now. It's just so crowded. And as
Yes.
much as they do, at least they used to put on a great kids pride, which was down at the
Mhm.
public school. They had a whole bunch of activities. It was all cordoned off and sprinklers and all of that. I think our friends had walked around in and out of bars and done that. We'd walked down to take the kids to the kid pride thing. And
Mhm.
then we were walking back up the street to try and meet them, and then you wanna get in to get a drink or a bite to eat somewhere, and everywhere's packed. I feel like we got into some place,
Mhm.
and Nathaniel had was, like, baby in diapers, and
Mhm.
I'm trying to find a place to change him, and I there was no changing station in the washroom, and so I'm, like,
Mhm.
in the back corner changing him in the stroller, bent over, sweating my balls off, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay, I think I'm done now. I think I'm done with this." So, now, I mean, it might be fun to take the kids back and do something, but
Now that they're older, yeah, yeah.
haven't been in a long time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Well, I think, given the fact that this is Pride Month, given the fact that, you've got some stories to share about your life as well, I thought it would be good to put your coming out story on the agenda today.
Oh my god, I'm the special guest.
You are the special guest of our episode today, CLo. Welcome.
I'm
Welcome to
coming
This Is
out.
Your Life.
I want the world to know. Okay.
So let's see how much we can actually remember because this was quite some time ago now at this point. But I want to start off by saying
Yes.
that before you came out,
Yes.
right? I do remember. So I think I think I was 23. So you would have been turning 24 that year, I
The
think, when you
year I
came out.
came out? No, it was earlier
Yeah.
than that.
Are you sure?
Well, my first Pride hat said 92 on it, so I was 21.
So, that can't be,
Me think
and I'm
so.
gonna tell you why.
Okay, go.
Well, okay, I'm gonna tell you why.
If only we
Well,
had smartphones with picture with, like, when you could take a picture and you could still look up the
maybe
year,
you're right.
date, time.
Maybe you are right. Yeah, no, I think maybe you are right. I'm sorry, I think you are right. I'm going by because I've got memories of you coming out to
Oh,
me
I know you do.
in Hello at the restaurant, and it was just before you and I became roommates, and I remember that, and I thought I was 23 when I moved out, but I might have actually been a bit younger. Um, right? I know, it's making you think. Okay, you know what? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't
Either
matter.
way, it doesn't matter because either way, it was the early
We're
20s,
we're of the
and,
age now where we can say, "At some point, this was after or this was before," but we don't have to put a time and a place to it, yeah.
yeah,
I'm,
exactly.
like, 99% positive I have a
Alright,
picture of myself with a black cap, and I had a pink triangle on the front, and it said 92, and on the back it said Pride, and that was my first Pride
m'kay,
cap, so that's what I'm basing it all on, but
okay,
who
let's
knows?
go with that.
Okay.
But I do remember
Mm.
before you actually came out to me,
Mhm.
you started asking me to go see these film festival movie type things, right? There was a couple of them that we had gone to see. And one of them, I think the name of the movie, it was a foreign film called Rose. I want to say it was called Rose. And it was about a little girl, I think it was, who was trans back in the Philippines, something like that. And, I know you're having trouble remember that. I'm gonna look it up, but it was one of those movies, and we had gone to see the movie, and it was actually phenomenal. It was a great movie. And then, we had gone out for dinner after the movie, and you were, like, questioning me, like, "What did you think about the movie?" And so we were just talking about it. I had no, thought other than just us talking about it. And then the second movie that you were like, you had gone to see it, and then you had said to me, I've seen this movie, but I wanna go with you. I want you to see this movie, and I want to go with you to this movie.
Okay.
And I'm like, "Okay." It was called Boys Don't Cry with Hilary Swank,
Oh,
remember?
that was such a good movie.
Right, it was, and so you and I sat in the theater and we were watching this movie, and oh my god, it was good, it was disturbing, it was especially because it was based on a true story as
Uh,
well, which was really heartbreaking, but we saw that movie, and then we talked about that movie afterwards as well. And then it was very shortly after that you had come out to me, and then I had asked you, I had said, "Okay, wait a sec, is that what those movies," like, I was wondering why you were asking me to go see these, which I was fine to go see, but, was there a purpose to it? And you had actually said to me you were trying so desperately to have a conversation, and I think you were just trying to gauge what reactions may be based on how I was reacting to these types of movies. I think it was like that. I kind of remember having that conversation with you. You were kind of, I think, testing the waters, and I don't even know if you realized that you were testing the waters, but you know, i- that's what I remember. So
wow.
yeah,
I the only rose that I remember was the bar on Parliament. Remember? That was called the
yes,
Rose?
that's right. I do remember that one too. I'm gonna see. I'm gonna Google it
Okay,
and
you'll have to
see if
you Google it.
yeah,
I do
yeah,
remember seeing movies. I definitely remember seeing, Boys on the Side. I remember Il Fornello,
yeah.
but I don't
Yeah.
remember too much. I remember me saying to you, "I think I might be gay," and you said, "Okay, cool. I know all the places we can go to," because you had a gay male friend. And you were like, "We're
That's
gonna
right.
go, like, we're gonna check it out. We're gonna figure this out for you." You were, like, totally on board, totally supportive. Yeah,
Yeah.
no
I
questions
was
asked.
surprised though. So let's break that down. Let's
You
break that
were
down. So
surprised?
oh, that you were gay? Yeah. I think that, CeeLo, there was, and I had mentioned this to you in the past, when we were 18, you or I was 18, you were 19, I think. You were living in that basement apartment in
That's the
Scarborough.
second time you've called out the fact that I'm slightly older than you, and I think you should just stop it. Go on.
No, I'm not gonna stop it because it's a joy. It's a joy for me to be able to say this. No. Okay, so you were in the basement apartment
Yeah,
and I was over visiting you. And we were sitting, on your floor leaning up against the daybed thing that you had, and we were
yeah,
watching something on TV, and you had made a comment, and at the time, you were actually dating a guy,
yeah. I was with that guy
and
for, like, 3 years or something.
You were, and it was a more serious. I think it was probably one of your first more serious relationships because I know that you guys had
Oh, yeah, totally.
talked about yep, getting married and moving in and blah, blah, blah. So, and so you were dating him at the time, and we were talking about something that was on the TV, and you had made a comment, and there was this tiny little voice inside me that said, "Ding, ding, ding. Could CeeLo be a lesbian?" And then I'm like, "No. No, 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 no,
She
no."
got a
But
boyfriend.
yeah, and at 18, what the fuck did I know about it,
Yeah.
right? But there was a tiny little instinct in me that went, "Just a second there, you said something that kind of made me think," and then I just kinda put it away and put it out of my mind because like you said, you had a boyfriend. And, so when you did finally come out to me, I was surprised. I wasn't expecting it. But I remember even though I know I was supportive, I do remember feeling a little confused as in like, but this is not who I know. Like, I mean, you had more boyfriends than I had ever had,
Yeah.
and it was never anything that was ever talked about. There was never I was a little surprised and I was like, geez, like, how long has this been going on? And I had a ton of fucking questions for you. I remember that.
I feel like I
Um,
had the same questions for myself because
yours,
I had come out to you, like, first and only, right? I had not talked to anyone else that I
yeah,
knew, no family member, no friends, and I mean, you were the only one I felt comfortable even whispering the idea of maybe some like, I didn't really know at that point.
yeah,
It was more just I think something's going on. I feel like something's going on, but I don't even know what to do next, right?
what it is.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because you did say to me and I remember this clear as day. We were both working downtown. We had both met up for lunch during the work day,
yeah.
and we were sitting in Il Fornello, and we were eating, and then I looked over at you, and I said, "What the fuck is wrong?" Because you looked like you were ready to burst into tears, and it was just, like, all of a sudden. I said, "What is wrong?" And that's when you said, "I'm confused. I think I might be gay."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What?"
Mm.
I was like, "What?" And then came all the, "Why do you think that?" And you did seem a little you shared a little bit about how you felt, how you, crushes, that kinda stuff that was
Yeah.
kind of making you feel this way. But you did say, "But I don't really know." And so I do remember saying to you, "Okay, we're gonna have to
Where
figure this
to
out.
go.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure this out. You need to go to some of these bars, and you're gonna have to meet some people,
Yeah.
um, and you're gonna have to try to explore this to see if this is really who you are." And I do remember it was that night. It was that night that you and I went
Really?
to because I did have
Uh,
a
I
yeah.
remember Il
We
Fornello, but I don't remember it being in the middle of a work day.
yeah, it was
Okay.
because I remember
Well,
saying to
why else
you
would we have been at Il Fornello? It
right,
had to have been
exactly,
during
but
the day.
I also remember saying to you, like, you couldn't have waited until we had more time because we ended up having to cut the conversation because we had to get back to work. But again, we were young, so it's
Yeah.
and I don't think you planned on coming out at that lunch. I think we were having lunch, we were talking, and I think this had been on your mind, and then it was just the moment of, "I've gotta blurt it out,"
This is
before I
why
lose my courage.
journaling is so important. I think people should journal so that they write these things down because I don't remember what was going through my head leading up to it. I don't know if I had
Yeah,
planned it or blurted it. Like all those, you don't know when you're going to have one of those key moments in your life,
yeah,
in advance, right? Or that, yeah.
yeah.
And that one day you'll be old and not remember anything. So,
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Mm.
So let's kinda go back a little bit to, like, so I know that you were in your 20s when you first came out,
Mhm.
but prior to that, CeeLo, I mean, like we said, you had boyfriends.
Yep.
Um, where did you start to think or did you start to think earlier on, that there was maybe something different about you? Or did you even, at an early was this, like, more of, like, a late teenager kind of revelation?
I think that I always felt like there was something different about me, and I didn't
Mhm,
know what it was. I just knew that I wasn't the same as everybody else.
mhm.
I don't know if being a lesbian was that or if it just felt like
Mhm.
I think, I don't know, grade school having divorced parents before anyone had divorced parents, like, I don't know,
Mhm.
something always felt not like something wasn't fitting, something wasn't right, but I didn't know what it was. After I came
Mhm.
out and I looked back, I was like, "Oh my god, Mrs. Alexander, I totally had a crush on her in grade 3." You know what I mean? Like, there
Did
were things
you?
that after I
Yeah.
came out and realized I was a lesbian and was like, "Okay, I got this. I'm such a lesbian." Then I started to think back about my childhood and
Mhm.
all this, and that's when things kind of came together of, "Oh, this was the difference that always felt a little bit weird and awkward." Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay,
Yeah.
and so what I mean, I remember you telling me that you broke up with this guy, the one that you were serious about,
Yeah.
and I was really, really upset. It was still about a year you were still about 2 years, I'm gonna say, away, maybe a year and a half, I don't know, of coming out, right?
No, I'm pretty sure that we had split up around the holiday time and
Yeah.
that I had talked to you about the possibility of being gay months
Uh-huh.
later, like 3
Months
or
later.
4
Okay.
months later. Like it wasn't
Okay.
once it
Years.
once I said it out loud,
Yeah.
it moved fairly quickly. But
It
yeah,
it did.
I was with him for at least 3 years, started in high school, went through college
Yeah.
and stuff, and I loved him. He was so
Yeah. Me
awesome.
too.
We got
Me
along
too.
really well. Um, and nothing like there was nothing in our relationship that said, "Oh, well, this is totally
Mhm.
awkward or weird or backwards." It wasn't
Mhm.
anything like that. I don't think it was until later in the relationship that I kind of felt like something was missing, but I didn't know what it was. I couldn't put my finger on it. I think now as
Mhm.
an adult looking back, having, mature adult relationships now, I look back and I feel like there might have been, like it was a controlling. I feel like I didn't have a great confidence or self-esteem. And yeah,
Mhm.
so I mean, nothing on him, right? Like I still think it was a good relationship and all that jazz, but
Mhm. Mhm.
now when I look back on it, yeah, it felt like a young
Yeah.
relationship, right? Where you don't quite know yourself or you don't know
No.
the things that you like
No.
and you maybe don't
Yeah.
haven't figured out how to stand up for yourself or share how you're
Yeah.
feeling about certain things and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember being upset with you for breaking up with him. I
I'm
do
sorry.
remember that because yeah, because I really liked him. I really liked the 2 of you as a couple. You know, like the 2 of you as a couple, you guys were great. You guys were great, and he was so much fun, and he was so nice, and, you guys were just so great together, and I just could not for the life of me understand why you broke up, and at one point, you just turned to me and you were like, "Listen, it's done, so just stop asking." You know, and I'm like, "Okay, alright,"
Are you
I
sure?
yeah,
Get
I
over
know,
it, Bo.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now, you realize that, you're starting to have these feelings, and so you decide that you're gonna disclose this, right?
Yes.
To me, okay.
My trusted
And then
confidant.
then I do remember that evening after you telling me, we went to that,
The rose on
bar,
the
I think it was
island.
called The Rose, yeah,
Yeah.
The Rose, yeah. And, I remember you and I standing outside of the bar, we were both nervous because
Oh
I had never
my
been
god, so nervous.
yeah, well, I neither one of us had ever been to a lesbian bar. We've been to gay bars, like male
Yeah,
gay
well,
bars.
you used to go
Um
all the time well, not all the time, but
Yeah,
more regularly.
a
I think
lot.
I might have
Mhm.
been with you a couple of times, but
Yeah.
not on the
Well,
regular,
that's
for sure.
yeah, because I had that close friend,
Yeah,
that was male a male gay friend as well, and so, we would go dancing sometimes,
yeah.
together at these places, and, so I was more familiar with that, but, not with lesbian bars at all, and I wasn't really familiar with lesbians either because I hadn't had much exposure to that. But I do remember us both and it's sweet when I think about it now, CeeLo, we're like these like early 20s, like, girls, like, and we're standing outside of this lesbian bar and we're doing this because we need to figure this out for you and we need to go in there for you.
Let's go.
And so we were like, yeah, but we were afraid. And what we were afraid of, I don't know. But I remember saying, okay, let's hold hands and let's go in as we're a couple. That way, if somebody approaches us, they're gonna think we're with each other, and then we can get
Right.
away. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah,
Total.
exactly.
We'll be
I know.
safe together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are your memories of that evening? Because that was your very first experience, I think, with a woman because you actually met someone. Um, I had brought her over to you. This is
Oh
like
my
an
god,
arranged
right?
marriage. I tell you, it's so funny to think about this, but
My
what do you remember of that evening?
I that first that e I remember walking into that bar
Mhm.
and thinking, "Oh my god, I've made a big mistake," because I didn't feel
Yeah,
like I fit
yeah.
in. I think maybe
Yeah.
I had the idea that I would walk in there, I'd be like, "Okay, now I know I fit in,"
These are
but
my
I walked
people.
in there and
Yeah,
I felt like the complete fucking opposite.
yeah.
Um, Everyone looked comfortable with themselves, and I did not feel comfortable with
Mhm,
myself. They fit a certain
mhm,
stereotype, and I was not in that stereotype just yet. It was pre-hair
mhm,
chop. And I don't know, it
mhm.
just kind of felt awkward, but we went in and we got a drink. I do remember you bringing Jan over to introduce her to
Yes.
me and
Yes.
thinking, um, if somebody wears a Calvin Klein Obsession, I still think of her, just saying. That's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that scent thing.
yeah.
Well, I think we had had a drink and we had chatted and we were, having fun or whatever there. And then we met
Mhm,
up with your friend and went to we were going to go dancing at the gay bar.
mhm. Yeah.
And she wanted to come with.
I think it was called Colby's at the time, right? Colby's.
Olbies, right?
Yes.
That's
Yep.
right.
Mhm.
And she wanted to come with, so we had agreed that, yeah, sure, come with. So she came with
Mhm.
us, this
That's right.
random little lesbo that attached herself to
Mhm,
us.
mhm.
And at Colby's, it was like dance music, we were all dancing, and it was still at the time when they played slow songs kind of at the end of the night,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Mm. And she
Yeah.
said, "Do you want to dance to this slow song?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So we got up
Mhm.
onto the dance floor and I put my hands on her waist, and that is the exact moment that I knew I was such a big lesbian. I knew in that
Did you
instant,
really?
I had never
You did, eh?
I mean, we had like, that was the first time I had
No.
physically
Yeah.
touched, and that's all I
Another
mean, it was
woman that
just a
way. Yeah.
dance, but that's the moment I'm like, "Okay, I just found what was been missing for sure."
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Well, that girl, Jan, she had when we were at the Rose, she had asked me to dance, and I don't know if I actually told you this. I may have though in the past, but so she had asked me to dance, and I had gotten up to dance, and you were like kind of sitting at the table, whatever, and we were chatting or whatever, and then she asked me, she said, "Are you gay?" And I said, "No, I'm straight." And she said, "Well, why are you at this bar?" And I said, and then I explained to her what was happening with you. I said, my best friend just came out. She just, told me, da da da, but she's confused. She doesn't know. She's never been with a woman. And we're here to try to figure this out for her. And she said, let me try to help her. And I said, oh, please, so then that's when I brought her over to the table. And
Mm.
yeah, and so that's how that kind of all worked out. So, but I'm so glad that it did because I think that was just the start of your journey, right? Of
Oh,
discovering who you were.
absolutely. It felt, like,
Yeah.
so affirming to me that, I knew now what had been missing. I felt like that was
Mhm.
confirmation almost instantly that I was a
Mhm.
lesbian, and it was a lot of fun initially, and then, of course, time passes a little bit, and now you're like, "Oh, I guess I have to, like, come out." Like,
Yeah.
other people, like my
Mhm.
family, my
Yeah.
parents, all 4 of them, other friends, workplace, like all of those. So I think that was a really tough time for me because I was worried, it was the early 90s and so it wasn't
Yeah.
quite as accepted as it is today, but
Mhm.
as much as there were some tough moments and tough conversations, I was met with unconditional love pretty much across the board. Mm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um
You're lucky
Yeah,
because not
I'm
everybody is.
I'm
Yeah.
so, so lucky, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think the thing my mom I had come out to my sisters and my brother, and I feel like some of
Mhm.
the comments that I heard back was my brother had said something like, "Cool, we can cruise chicks together." Like something along those
I can
lines.
see him saying
I'm
that
trying
at
to
that
think of
age.
how
Yes,
old he
absolutely.
would
Yeah,
have
yeah.
been at this time, right? He's like a teenager. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kinda funny.
He was
And then
probably his age, no?
oh,
Maybe.
probably close, yeah, because he's 5 years younger than
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, yeah,
How
yeah.
crazy is that? He's a baby.
Isn't it when you put that into perspective, yeah.
Yeah, total. And my sisters were awesome and lovely, and,
Mhm,
I think I can remember one of them saying, "We support you, we love you, it doesn't matter to us, but, you know, don't ever feel like you can't change your mind. Like, this isn't something, if you go down this path and realize, "Oh, no, I was wrong, I wanna go back," like, don't ever feel badly about kind of coming back
mhm,
to the
mhm,
straight world, I guess, I don't know. And
mhm.
so as much as at the time that felt awesome and open and freeing, now when you think back on it, it's kind of one of those things where it's something that I had struggled with and thought about and, cried about and all like over so long. And then when you tell someone, you forget that they're just learning it for the very first time, right? So it's
Yes.
gonna take some time to adjust, and I think we have to give people credit
Mhm,
for taking that
mhm,
time. All the parentals were pretty good.
mhm.
I can remember over, like, that coming out period for me, my mom had made a comment to me. She said, I love you. It's fine. I'd always thought you'd make a great parent. You'd be a great mom or something
I
like that.
I remember you telling
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that.
And, I said, "Well, I still could," and she was just like, "What?"
Yeah,
Like, not even thinking about
yeah.
how that would even work. So,
Mhm, mhm.
yeah, and my when I told my dad and his wife, I think they said something like, I think my stepmother said, "Yeah, no kidding, like, we always knew." I'm like, "What?"
Oh, what?
Yeah. How did you not tell me that then? This could have saved some pain and suffering. Yeah.
Isn't that funny,
Yeah.
so
She
I
said she
don't know.
suspected.
Did you ever ask what they s yeah, like, what they saw? Because I never I mean, like, that there was just that one moment, like I told you when we were 18, but outside of that, I mean, did they ever say what it was that made them think
Um,
that you
I don't know, maybe I mean, I was always a bit of a tomboy. I mean, I'd rather be running around, riding bikes, playing outside than, putting on a skirt and dancing to like,
Mhm,
my sister and I
mhm,
were very different in that way, but so
mhm,
maybe that's
mhm.
all it was. I don't know. I don't remember ever asking her what made her think
Interesting.
that way.
I
And
do
although
remember
yeah.
go ahead.
When we were looking for pictures for our high
Mhm.
school flashback episode,
Yes.
I found a picture of myself in grade 8
Okay.
looking very dykey and with a rainbow necklace on and a rainbow bracelet. I'm like, I didn't even know what
No.
that meant at the time, and here I was in grade 8,
Yeah.
writing it
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
wall. Yeah, good
Yeah,
time.
that's true. I seem to remember at one point in time, and I don't know who it was, but somebody had said to you or alluded to the fact that this could potentially be a phase that you were going through. And I remember you got very defensive about that. It was, this is not a phase. This is who I am. And
Yeah,
I just don't remember who had mentioned that to you, but I know that, your memory of experiences was mostly positive, which I think it was compared to some other stories that are out there.
oh,
You had definitely a very much more positive experience, but there was still some adjusting for everybody,
of
because
course, yeah. 'Cause it's so
yeah,
different, right? Like, I think that people all of a sudden are like, "Oh, you're not the person I thought you were," right? And
yeah.
people are thinking, like, how do they need to be and act? I remember my sisters and I had a nickname for someone, close to the family type of person, and the nickname for that person had always been Lesbianessa. That was her nickname. And so
Lesbianess.
that was one concern that my sisters did
Yeah,
bring to me earlier on. They were like, "Can we still use the nickname?" And I'm like, "Yes, you can.
yeah,
It's fine. It's fine."
yeah,
So just funny
yeah.
stuff like that. But, it took me years to be
Yeah.
comfortable and to be myself, and, so you can't expect, I think, the others that are
Mhm.
around you that hear this information for the first time, it's not gonna be perfect. You know,
No.
it was clear to me that I was, loved and supported. Did they say the perfect
Mhm.
right things? No, maybe not, but eventually we all got there, like, I feel very
Mhm.
fortunate
Mhm.
to have such an awesome family. Shout out. Shout out to my sibs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely, CeeLo.
but I think the person who said that phase
Mhm.
comment, this was
Mhm.
now a little while after I had first come out. It was someone at work,
Mhm. Oh, okay. Okay.
like my boss
Ah.
at work.
Oh, okay. That's who it came from. Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
back in the day.
Yeah.
And,
Mhm.
yeah, but in general, supportive. Don't like I think a fair amount of people had said, "Well, don't tell anyone else. Like, don't tell anyone." Right? That was like, "Let's
Mhm.
keep it on the down low." And so that doesn't make you feel that great, but it is what it is.
Now, were they saying that about not telling other family members or not telling people at work, or what was that in context with?
I think my mom's advice was to not tell anyone at work, and my boss's
Uh-huh.
advice was to not tell anyone at work.
Yeah. And again, this is very early, early on in our working careers. We were in our
Yeah.
early 20s, and so times were definitely different back then.
Times were so different back then. I feel really
Mhm.
lucky to work at an organization that has, a focus on diversity and inclusion
Yes.
and all of
Yes.
that stuff, and for me to be involved in that, I love that. Um,
Yeah.
to think that you're doing something that might be helping someone else ease their way out of the closet or to make it a little bit better for them,
Mhm.
that worry, I
Mhm.
think a lot of people, even back in the day, like back in the, AT&T days, remember those days?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
There were a
Gosh,
few
that's a long time
people
ago.
that we worked with that were so far in the closet and were
Yes.
terrified about ever coming out, and here
That's
comes
right.
me, this young whippersnapper, and I'm like, "Well, I don't do secrets kind of very well," so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a
Here I
different, and
am.
I think it's personal, right? Like, to each his own. You gotta live your own life. You gotta do your own thing, so,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
around the time frame when you first came out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my perspective of how things went, because this is your story, your journey, but I was part of it as well, right? Like along with you. And you know, as bizarre as this is going to sound, CeeLo, there was a bit of a mourning period that I actually went through, because when you first came out, and again, this is my perception of it,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
this was from my viewpoint of it.
You can have your own
When you
story,
first
it's fine.
no, no, but it's there were things that you and I used to do together. I know that we used to go get our nails done together. We used to, like, go places together, blah 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 blah, right?
Yeah,
And when you first came out, it was shortly after you started to come out to your family and to work. It's almost as if you did this, there was a bit of a shift where you were really trying to figure out who you were
yeah,
and where you fit in this new role of yours, right? And you went almost completely opposite to what I had known of you. I mean, your personality was still your personality. The things that we still got along with, about and had common ground with, you still had, but there was a shift in terms of your interests and the things that you wanted to do, and what you were exploring. And then you cut your hair really short and you stopped getting your nails done. And that common ground that we had started to kind of go away. And it was a bit of a mourning period for me, and a bit of an adjustment period to get used to the new version of you that I was becoming aware of, right?
right, right.
And then after a little while, once you kind of like, how I kind of explain it, CeeLo, or think about it, is it's almost like this was this rebellious thing. You were like, listen, I've just discovered something about myself and I'm going to tell the entire fucking world. And you were almost testing people. You're either going to be on my side or you're going to be not on my side. And like you were
Yeah,
you were testing those waters with people, and you were very adamant about making sure that you had the right people surrounding you, which was a positive thing, but definitely an adjustment. And then things seemed to settle. Like once you became a little bit more, comfortable with you and who you were and what you liked, and because, we talked about understanding ourselves at a later age. Like, you talk about your children
Yeah,
kind of discovering who they are now.
yeah.
You and I did come into that discovery later in life, and so you were going through probably what a teenager would have gone through, discovering who they were.
Yeah, I think had the environment been different, it would have totally been a teenager thing, and instead, for me, it was an early 20s thing, no
Yeah.
question. But I spent my entire life not quite fitting in and
Yes.
never quite feeling comfortable for whatever that's
Yes.
worth, right? And now I
Yeah.
discover something about myself, and I have to I feel like I swung the other way to fiercely fit in to this
Yes.
other
Yeah.
community that I'm now a part of. And
Yes.
because when I first came out, was still lost, right? Like I didn't
Of
fit
course.
feel like I fit in anywhere. And
Mhm.
so I think that was part of that, like to your point, that pendulum is swinging. It kind of went, eventually found its way to the middle. But um yeah, it took a lot of adjusting, and it felt like I needed to jump into the deep end almost to figure it
Mhm.
all out maybe,
Mhm.
but I'm glad you stuck with me.
Mhm. Of course. I mean, listen, at the end of the day,
Even though
CeeLo,
I don't get
what you can
manicures anymore. I'll go with a for a pedi with you though.
wait, we do now. I mean, because we went with this, remember we
Yeah,
went for the mani and pedis?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. You know what? That is just we were young and that was something that we used to do together. That's not, something that we have to do now, but we still do it now
No, we're
anyways.
gonna
But I'm
fucking
just
do it.
saying,
We're gonna do it,
yeah,
okay?
we're gonna okay, okay, let's go for mani pedis. No, but it was that adjustment. I think it was an adjustment for you, but it was also an adjustment for everybody around you as well. And I think though, when I look back on this and I look back on your story, and it sounds like you feel the same. You're right. Some reactions were perfect, some reactions were not perfect. Everybody was learning about it, but at the end of the day, I think you knew that we all loved you,
Oh,
right? Like, you were
absolutely.
loved,
Yeah,
where all of us were like, listen, it's not about you being gay. It's about you going through something and trying to find yourself, and we're here because we love you,
yeah.
no matter what that looks like, right? And so I guess that was more than half the battle of getting you to where you are today, right? At least knowing that you had love there. I feel bad for a lot of the folks that don't, because honestly, CeeLo, I don't think a lot of people have had the same positive experiences as you. I
Oh,
don't.
100%, like, with their families, with their workplace, like,
Yes.
I know I've heard the horror
Yes.
stories, and,
Yeah.
one of the charities that I support is called the Bill 7 Award and Trust, and it provides, scholarships for LGBTQA+ youth. And
Mhm.
so they have this event in the fall, and they showcase the kids that have gotten the scholarship. So they have a chance to come up and tell their story. And I am like blown away at what still exists in our society. Like, these kids have been
I know.
kicked out of their house, living in their car, still want to go to school. Like, I'm just, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Did you know that the gay conversion still gets attempted in certain
Oh
places
my God.
within North America?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
scary to me. It's scary to me.
It is, isn't it? It is. I also I know that you
Like,
kind of started to
as
Mhm.
much as we're in a so much better place now than when
Yeah.
we were,
Mhm.
50 years ago, there's still a lot of work to do. And, like, the whole trans kids and the school board and what's happening, oh my god, it breaks my heart all the time. I
Yeah.
can't even.
I know. So, and I hear you, CeeLo. Okay, so then you started your exploratory journey of trying to figure out who you were in your early 20s and in your 30s, and you went through some relationships. Some of them were good, some of them were not so good, and we should do
We're
an
not gonna go
episode.
too far down this road, okay? We're not gonna go
I
too far down.
We don't have enough time on this episode to go through, but maybe what we should do is do some fucked up relationship stories, because we've got a couple,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That we could talk about. But, you make your way through life and then you eventually meet Mel.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, and just correct me here, but I seem to remember that when you and Mel got married, were you guys not one of the first, lesbian couples in Ontario to get married
Um,
once the bill passed, once it became legal?
well, not one of the first, but the law was passed, I think it was in June 2005, and we were married in September of 2005.
Okay, so you were not the first. I thought there was something along the lines of you guys being one of the first, but
Well, I
I guess
guess
I'm
in
wrong.
that first year for sure, but,
Okay,
I mean,
got it.
we knew that we wanted to get married. I had asked Mel to marry me, and
Mhm.
she reluctantly said yes. No, I'm kidding. She said, "Of course."
She did not. Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
And then we knew that we were hopeful that it was gonna get passed for it to be legal. And
Mhm,
once it did, that's when we knew
mhm,
we were gonna
mhm.
do it once it was legit.
And so tell me a little bit about how that went down when you spoke to your family and friends about getting married. What was the reaction to that?
Um, Nothing but excitement and support for the most part. I think, Mel was a little reluctant to share with her, parents because she wasn't sure how they would, react, but, yeah, I mean, they eventually came around. I mean, it's pretty clear they love me more than her now, but I think,
That is true.
early on, it was tough, right? Because
Yeah.
when Mel and I first
Yeah, of
met, she
course.
was only 25,
Yes.
right? She's a
Yes.
baby.
Yeah.
She's a
Yes.
little baby.
I know.
Yeah, so it was tough. So
Oh,
she was just kind of coming out at that time, or was
yeah.
out really, but hadn't really, talked to her parents and stuff about it. So it made it tough. And, yeah, we chose to do a small wedding than what might be typical had we been a straight couple. But it was lovely. It was amazing.
It was. It was lovely. I remember, and I remember, um, because this was still kind of fairly new, so your wedding was outside in the courtyard of that hotel.
Yep.
And, I remember, standing up there and with Mel 'cause I was your maid of honor so I was standing up there with I had walked down and standing there with Mel, and then we were watching you come down the aisle, right? And I remember
We both
looking,
came in at the
um
same time.
who, you and I?
No.
Oh, yeah, you and Mel, that's right, sorry, sorry.
You
I
and
was up at the
Steph
front,
were
that's right.
there,
You and
and
Mel came in at the
then
same time.
yeah,
Yes,
because I can
you're
remember
right.
waiting behind the corner for the
Yes.
queue that Mel was also ready and waiting behind her corner.
That's right,
I
and
was
then you guys came
standing
to
there
meet.
for, like, 20 min no, not that long, but I was waiting for her, and the ongoing joke is
Yeah.
I'll spend the rest of my life waiting for
Waiting for her,
yeah.
exactly. Sorry, yeah, that's right. But I remember being up at the front waiting for you guys to come down, right? And as the walk is starting, right? The wedding mark walk, I remember looking over to the lobby of the hotel, and up against the window was a crowd of people just watching. And I remember thinking to myself, now, are they watching because this is a wedding, or are they watching because this is 2 women in wedding gowns, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
getting married, and I wasn't sure. Did you see any of that? Were you aware of any of that? You
No,
weren't, so you were just in
nothing
the moment.
at all,
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
Nothing at all.
that's
I
funny.
was just, like, wrapped up in what was going on in my own, head, making sure that Mel eventually did get to her place so that we could walk down the aisle together. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, that was pretty much it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, now, you fast forward to you coming out. Did you ever think, when you first came out that you would be a married woman with 2 children? Was that always something that you thought would be? Or, like, is this kind of like a, "What the shit?"
Yeah, I totally did. I knew that I knew what I wanted a long-term relationship with someone. I knew that I wanted to get married, and I knew that I wanted kids. That was
Yeah,
never any question, and the kid part was coming, no
yeah.
matter what. So if we had
Yeah,
not met and I wasn't in a relationship, I would have found another way to do it.
to have children.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's
100%.
good. That's
Yes,
good.
they are the joys of my life most days. Uh,
Most days. Yeah.
most days, most days. One thing about coming out, we talked a little bit about coming out at work and stuff, and the whole coming out process of, it's like a one-time thing when you're 20 years old or whatever. And
Mhm,
it's sadly it's not. It's all the time. And I think over time you get a little bit more comfortable with it. But every time you meet someone new or talk to someone
mhm,
new or
mhm.
get a new job or, you're coming out every single time all over again. We were at
Still?
Yeah, we were at a golf tournament and,
Mhm,
Mel and I are in the cart, and we're chatting with this lady who that we hadn't met before, super nice. But as soon as you say, "Oh, look, we're together," that's our son up there in
mhm,
the other cart or whatever, you don't know how people are gonna react all the time, right? Like, so
mhm,
it's a constant thing, and the same thing in the workplace where, you join a new group and you're meeting, you've got new people on the team or whatever. And so it's not a one time, and people think of it as a one-time event, that
mhm.
that afternoon at Il Fornello, but it's a continuous thing that happens constantly over all the years.
I didn't realize that that was still something that was blind of me to think that, but I like it that you were still having to navigate, um, identifying yourself, I suppose, right? Like, I don't think of like, I don't know, in this day and age, it's so to me, it looks so accepted, but you're living it from a different point of view, right? And so you're saying that it is still a conscious awareness that you have when you're in new environments.
Absolutely. And you get more comfortable with it over time and more confident in it
Mhm,
over time, but it is something that happens on the regular. And I guess there's going to be times where you're going to come across someone that is, you know, a total dick,
mhm.
prejudice, whatever, and then you've got to make the decision to move on. But I mean,
Yeah.
luckily,
But
that doesn't happen very often, and most people are like,
no.
"Oh, okay, cool, whatever,"
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. There are dicks in this world about absolutely everything though, like everything, right?
Yeah.
As soon as this dick ass person feels that you don't meet what they consider to be their norm,
Yeah.
no matter what the situation is, you know what I mean? Like they can be
Mhm.
fucking assholes, and there will always be fucking assholes.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah,
Yeah. Each year
things
we're
are.
meeting new parents on a hockey team or
Mhm,
a basketball team. Each year
mhm,
we're meeting new people at work. Each year you're being introduced to new friends of friends, right? And
mhm,
so yeah, so
mhm.
you don't think of it, but it does, yeah, happen a lot.
So let me ask you, have your kids ever talked to you about this, or have they ever shared how they feel about having 2 moms? Or have you, like, even going to decide that you and Mel were gonna have children, what kind of conversations did you have around that? Were there any fears or concerns or what?
I think that early on when we talked about kids before we'd even had any plan to have the kids, it was, you have to be comfortable and out and confident, because the last thing you want to do is bring a kid in, um, to a family or a household. Like if I were um reluctant to be out, or if I was still in the closet, like that's just teaching my kid shame, right? And no
Mhm,
shame on those who are still in the closet, you do you. But then when you have a kid coming
mhm,
along, you don't want them to feel shameful about their home life or their
mhm,
parents or
mhm,
or anything like that. And so I think you have to be in a good place in order to bring kids into the
into the mix.
situation, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they've never, much said anything, too much. I think for the most part, when they were younger, like elementary, it
Mhm,
didn't really come up very often. Like, it was just like,
mhm,
"Oh, you've got 2 moms? Okay, whatever." But now
mhm,
they're older, there's a little bit more awareness, is said
Mhm.
something about the fact that her friends love that she has 2 moms, blah, 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 and they think it's hilarious and funny.
Mhm.
Um, I there was an incident with Nathaniel where he was in an argument with somebody at school, and they
Mhm.
were, I don't know, arguing, maybe even shoving, and some kid or Nathaniel said something about the boy's sister, and that
Oh, jeez.
escalated things, right? Like that his
Yeah.
sister was
Yeah.
stupid or something like that, and that escalated
Yeah.
things, and the boy turned around and he said, "Yeah, well, your moms are fucking dykes." And
Uh-huh.
so then Nathaniel took him to the ground, you know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
God. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
so he got busted for that, and he came home,
Mhm.
and he told us exactly what had happened, and I'm like, "Why would you call his sister stupid? Like, why would you?" "Well, because he was doing this." Well, it was like an argument, right? I'm like, "Okay, fine."
Mhm.
But I said, "Did you need to shove him and take him to the ground kinda thing?" And he says, "Well, this is what he said." And Mel's like, "Yeah, that's right, you take him to the ground."
Oh,
And I'm like,
Mel. Oh, fuck Mel.
inside, I'm like, "Yes." But on the
Yeah.
outside, I'm like, "Okay, that's
Responsible
when you
parent.
need to,
Yeah.
like, walk away, and if he's continuing to bug you, you go find a teacher." But on the inside,
Mhm.
I was, like, cheering on my boy. Anyway,
Yeah.
so he goes
Yeah.
into the office, and he's talking to the
Mhm.
vice principal, and, we know the vice principal.
Mhm.
There's other stories. And so the vice principal said something about him having to go home for the day and that we were supposed to talk to him, or he had to go and apologize to this kid or something. I don't remember what
Mhm.
the punishment was or whatever. And so he
Mhm.
comes home and he tells us this, and he said, "It's not fair." And I said, "Well,
Mhm.
you did push him to the ground." And he said, "Yeah, because of what he said about my family." And I said, "Okay,
Oof.
good point." And he said, "So I'm gonna go back tomorrow and tell the vice principal, what if that was a racial slur? Or what if that was a religious
Oh,
slur? Would
smarty
I
pants.
be the only
Yeah.
one still in trouble, or would both of us be in trouble?" And so he went back and, like,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, that's a good point. Like, let us know how it goes, right? Like, you got
Yeah.
yourself into this. I think it's a great,
Yeah.
way for him to look at it." And he took it back to the VP, and the VP is like, "You're absolutely fucking right. So you are going home." And so is the other kid. So his
Yeah.
punishment wasn't lessened for doing the shove to the ground, but at least both of them were being punished for that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
How smart of him is that? And, I often find, Nathaniel's very justice oriented.
Yes.
Like, I know, yeah, like, from a lot of the stories that I've heard from you guys, it's like he is always there to defend the underdog. He is always there to, stand up for what's right, and he's not afraid to stand up for what's right. Like, he is a confident young man who is not afraid to call out injustice,
Yeah.
and it's very admirable. It's a very admirable quality.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, and it's just him.
Mhm.
He's been like this since he was, little. We
Y
used to
young.
call him, like, the
Yeah,
schoolyard police kinda thing, but,
that's
um
right.
yeah, I also think that he needs to learn a little bit about diffusing a situation instead of helping to escalate it, but that's a whole other episode.
For sure, and plus he's quite the big guy now, you know what I mean? Like, he is very
He's a big metal
overpowering for
boy.
other kids his age, yeah, so with that comes a little bit of, learning how to responsibly use that height and that strength,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
mhm, mhm, that's
Okay,
good.
so I have one other little funny story to share before we close it
Mhm.
out. So we started talking about the fact that I drove along Bloor today and they've got all their rainbows out and all that,
Yes.
Pride.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I remember this story that my sister told me, and she said, this was probably, I don't know, grade school, maybe grade 2 or 3, and my
Mhm,
niece's school had a rainbow flag out front, and my
mhm,
sister had gone to pick up my niece and,
mhm,
and noticed that the school had a rainbow flag, and she's telling me, like, "I think this is so awesome that they're doing this because
mhm,
3 years ago, right?" And
mhm,
so she said to her daughter, my niece, she said, "Look at that beautiful rainbow flag up in front of your
mhm,
school. Like, what do you think
mhm.
that means?" Right?
Mhm,
prompting
mhm.
her for some kind of profound, you know,
Awareness? Yeah.
inclusivity, diversity, and you know what my niece says?
What?
"I think that means a storm's a coming."
Oh my god.
Yeah, my niece, the little storm, my
Ah,
niece,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
I thought that was
That's
funny.
fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Great,
Mhm.
CeeLo.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for sharing your coming out story,
yeah,
and, I'm glad that you are who you are and where you are, and I'm glad that I'm still part of your life
yeah.
because I love it.
I'm glad that you
I love
are who you are, and I feel very lucky to have you as my friend.
ditto, baby girl, ditto.
All right.
Okay, on that note, thanks everybody for listening. This is Bo.
This is CeeLo. Thanks for taking a seat at the table today. We love our dinner guests.
Don't forget to subscribe and follow The Dinner Agenda on the podcast platform you use so that you don't miss any new episodes. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Dinner Agenda.
We look forward to hearing your comments, questions, and even ideas you may have on future episodes.
Thanks for taking this journey with us.